Hey everyone, welcome back to Staying Connected. This is Katie, your host, and today I have Ed with me. Ed is going to talk about his story with vascular Ehlers-Danlos syndrome. Good morning.
Good morning, Katie.
How are you this morning?
I'm good. How about yourself?
Good. We had talked previously about your diagnosis with VEDS, I think as you were first going through it, so I really appreciate you talking to me about your story. First off, if we could introduce yourself, tell us a little bit about you, where you are, who you are, how old you are.
Okay, well, my name is Edward. I'm 36. From Erie, PA. Currently live in Texas.
And how are you diagnosed with VEDS?
I was diagnosed through a genetics test. As I was getting open heart, I was about to have open heart surgery, and they did a genetics test just kind of like as a basic precaution. But they actually didn't get the test results back for 6 months. So my open heart was done by the time I got the diagnosis of vascular Ehlers-Danlos syndrome. And they were actually kind of shocked because I don't think they would have went forward with the surgery the way they did if they would have known about vascular EDS diagnosis. So that was how I was diagnosed.
So you were diagnosed with VEDS after you successfully had open heart surgery.
Right.
Holy cow.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm so glad that went okay.
Man, I didn't realize until after I started reading up on the VEDS stuff that how severe, how lucky I was.
Yeah. That is super lucky. So you didn't have any major events for VEDS that caused them to genetically test you. It was actually just a precursor test for open heart surgery.
Yeah. And there had been things in the past. A few years prior, I was 28. A few years before my surgery, and I was in the hospital, and they did a heart catheter, and they had told me that I had an aneurysm in my aortic root, and at the time I was kind of like, I'll go when the Lord is ready to take me. I don't want any kind of surgery. That's just how I felt. But then a couple years later, it came up again, and I had other heart issues as well. I had a mitral valve prolapse that had just started off. It was a heart murmur. The doctor told me when I was young, it'll go away. It's just something that people grow out of, but it never went away. So that was how the heart surgery came to be.
So your heart surgery was for the mitral valve prolapse?
Yes, and the aneurysm in my aortic root.
Wow. So did they successfully fix both of those things?
They did. I have a 3D ring grafted in to my aortic root, and the good doctor at Cleveland Clinic, God bless him, he used my own scar tissue to fix the stutter in the valve. So no foreign materials other than the 3D ring. Everything else is mine.
Wow, that's such a relief to hear that.
It's a blessing. The whole experience has been a blessing for me. Coming up to the heart surgery, I had no intention, even just a month or two prior, before I had made the decision to have open heart. My life was totally wrecked. After the heart surgery, I didn't really have an intention of sobering up. It was after my diagnosis in February of 2017. Yes, 2017. That I really changed my life around. I stopped using drugs, and I was like, I mean, I had every excuse to like keep using, and eventually, just wind up in a box somewhere. Um, but I I was blessed. I was blessed to have this chance.
Wow. So you've been sober since your diagnosis?
I have been sober. It's been 18 months.
Congratulations.
Thank you. I've had a couple. I had two relapses, two major relapses, and I haven't. At the end, I learned that it's not about like going back out. It's about how you pick yourself back up, and not beating yourself up. And my life. I mean, I don't even touch pharmaceuticals anymore. I'm on a homeopathic. That's my regimen, homeopathic regimen.
So tell me about how you coped with your diagnosis.
Well, drug use. At first, to be honest with you, Katie, I didn't really have, my family, we love each other a lot, but we have our own lives, and I had to deal with it on my own, for the first year. I had my girlfriend with me, and she's been an absolute, she's amazing. I love her to death. I wouldn't be here if it wasn't for her.
What kind of feelings did you have when you were first diagnosed?
I was angry. I was hurt. A little bit of me. I wasn't really surprised. I was almost kind of relieved. It was a lot of emotions all at once. For many years before then, before my diagnosis, before I knew that I had like serious heart problems, I was always telling people that I was fragile. Like, you have to be careful with me. Like, I'm fragile. And even the friends that have known me the longest, they're like, no wonder. Like, you've been saying for years that you're fragile. Like, no wonder you're fragile. You've got vascular Ehlers-Danlos syndrome. And so I mean, it was a lot. It was a lot to deal with. Emotionally, I mean, yourself.
Yeah.
It's not easy. I guess in the end, I accepted it as a gift, more than a curse, just because of how sour my life had been. I honestly believe if it wasn't for this diagnosis, I'd be dead from an overdose, or just not eating and staying up forever, or I mean, mentally, I mean, who knows? I mean, there's been a lot involved with this VEDS diagnosis. It just answered a lot of questions for myself, a lot of like struggles that I've had in my life. Not having energy is a big one. Watching everyone else like run circles and track, and I can't, like, I gotta hoof it to to really keep up, and I don't understand what's going on. You know what I mean? And, like, my bones are popping as I get older, and it's just like all this stuff. And the diagnosis really kind of put a perspective on everything. Once the initial like anger had passed.
So what other things did it explain for you that you experienced when you were younger?
The double jointedness, the heart murmur, the heart problems that I've had. That was, I mean, I guess I always thought it was normal for people to have like translucent skin. I didn't really pay attention So it's a few things. As I get older, it's the popping bones and the arthritis at the age of 36.
Yeah.
um, it's kind of jolted my anxiety a bit because I get anxiety attacks a few times, well, sometimes a few times a day, and the doctors are like, well, if you feel something weird, go to the hospital. So you can imagine, like, every time I get an anxiety attack and I go to the hospital.
Oh, yeah.
And, like you don't know, you don't know what's going on. The doctors are like, well, we've had so many blood works and, tests done and CAT scans and, we can't really see what's going on, but you seem to be okay. And I'm like, they just telling me to come in here, doctor. Like, you guys are supposed to tell me what's wrong.
So what do your anxiety attacks revolve around?
I get palpitations. So a lot of times I'll get palpitations and I'll think maybe I'm like having a heart attack, or I've got GERD. So it's so you know how it goes. The intestinal stuff will start kicking in, and a lot of times that feels like a heart attack.
Yeah.
So that's the biggest ones. Sometimes I'll get like a jolt in the side of my neck, and like the first thing I want to do is run to the hospital. Like it is, and it's probably just a little muscle spasm, but I think a lot of us are super hyper aware of what's going on in our body, and I don't know how you deal with it yourself, but for me, I'm still learning. It's, a lot of times I'll sit down and like I'll say a prayer, or my grandmother's been a huge rock in my life, and I'll call her and she'll kind of like calm things down. But I'm still learning. It's a day at a time experience.
Yeah, and it's hard to know. What is serious pain, what is not serious pain, and everything hurts.
Right.
So it's like, okay, when do I know that this is a severe thing?
Right. Yeah, it's and that's where like awareness really like comes into play. But then like it's like awareness is great, like, but we still don't have a grasp on like how to handle this thing.
Mm-hmm.
Like there's not a lot of awareness in the community. There's a little bit.
Yeah, it's
but
growing.
It is. I wish it would grow more, like, but you gotta have patience, I guess. It's hard. It's hard to tell the difference between what's serious and what isn't. When in your head, like everything that you feel is like like 1,000 deaths,
Yeah.
And then in the end, it seems to just happen so quick, no matter what you do. I just read about a lady that died on Christmas. I think I read it through your feed. I think it was on your Twitter feed.
Yeah, that is dark.
She was 48. God bless her. It's like a thief in the night.
It does seem to happen very fast.
And so in knowing like just like how fast things happen, it's kind of almost in a way calmed me down. And the anxiety is really like lessened. In the beginning, I mean, like I said, I turned to drug use, and that was, and that, now I don't even take ibuprofen anymore.
Mm-hmm.
My diet is a huge part of my sanity.
So tell me about your diet.
it just seems like for myself, a lot of me feeling good day to day relies on what I put into my body. I used to get these horrible, horrible headaches. Remember telling you about the headaches?
Oh yeah, it was like
Um,
thunderclap headaches, right?
yeah, yeah. And I quit drinking caffeine, coffee in particular, and I swear I haven't had a single one. I haven't
Wow.
had a single one. One time I had some tea at a friend's house, and that gave me a headache. Um, Another time I had hot chocolate, and that gave me a headache. So like some a lot of caffeine is what I stay away from.
I hear ya. I limit mine too.
Yeah,
I haven't
and
cut it out
that's like,
completely, but
yeah, I love coffee. I tried to go decaf. Like I go to IHOP. We go to IHOP one day, and I tried the decaf, and I just don't see the point of. It's like putting water in your gas tank. You don't go to the gas station to put water in your gas tank.
you're talking to somebody who drinks decaf all day long.
Man, it's so hard.
I love
Ugh.
it.
And I have it, and I'm like, I got the smile on my face, but like, you just grin and you just sip and you just wish it was caffeine.
So, what other changes is having this diagnosis meant for you? Whether it's doctors or relationships?
um, Doctors. My relationship with doctors has been a little bit more cautious. And I've heard this a few times since my diagnosis, but I used to put so much faith in doctors, and then this diagnosis comes along, and it like changed. It just changed all that. It changed how I felt about doctors. It made me realize that I need to be more aware of what's going on with myself, because I mean, doctors can say what they want, but I think like we're the only ones that really know what's going on with us. Like, sometimes it feels that way.
Yeah.
Um, as far as relationships with my family and my loved ones, they haven't been better in a long time.
That's good.
Of course, the diagnosis and then me sobering up. And then when people in my family and my friends saw that I was serious about cleaning my life and turning it around, they've always been there. I wasn't. And things have been good. I have the trust of people again, and that's cool.
Yeah, I bet that's good.
And people believe me. Originally when I got diagnosed, they were kind of like, you don't really have this diagnosis. Like, you're just making this up. But once they saw like what was going on and the seriousness of it, and me taking serious action, yeah, the support has been. I couldn't have made it without Holly, my girlfriend, and my grandmother, and my father, and it's just been amazing. This whole diagnosis has been like a spin cycle.
Yeah. Does anybody else in your family have this?
I don't know. My mother, I think, I know she had neurofibromatosis. I don't know much else. She passed away at the age of 29.
Wow.
She had tumors, and eventually I think one of them turned cancerous.
So that is what neurofibromatosis is, right? It's the development of these tumors
Yeah.
in your brain.
Yeah. And she was adopted. My mom was adopted. So anything before then, I don't really know. I don't have any kind of information on. I'm working on it. But let's see, on my father's side, um, my my grandparents are pretty much like his mom. They're all like perfect bills of health. But his father, my grandfather, uh, he's had acute arrhythmia or something, like his whole life. And I have a cousin, Christine, that had joined the Air Force, and when they were going overseas, they had actually found out that Christine had like blood clots or something. She had this condition, but I don't know that she was ever actually tested. I don't know that anyone else in my family's actually ever been tested for VEDS. But we do have history of heart complications and blood clots, a lot of blood clots. Yeah. So, but as far as I know, I'm the first one in my family.
Did they offer your family any testing after you were diagnosed?
They had suggested my son get tested. They didn't really go into any. I think they had asked me like if anyone in my family had ever had it. But I asked my grandfather, and he said that as far as he knows, nobody has it. And the doctors, they didn't really offer like testing extended past like my son.
Did your son get tested?
So my son lives with his mother. I told her about this 2 years ago. I'm under the assumption that she was taking him. We talk all the time. He doesn't know. He doesn't know if he's ever been tested. But I can't have a conversation with his mom.
Yeah. How old is your son?
He is 13.
13.
13. He just turned 13.
Does he have any of the hypermobility and things that you have?
From what I've seen, no. He's not that flexible. But like he's got kind of like a thin nose, so it's really I don't know. I don't think he does. But we'll see.
Yeah.
It's something that I've been
crossed.
pressing. It's something that I've been pressing for almost 2 years. So you can only talk so much, before someone does something.
Yeah. Well, fingers crossed that he doesn't have it. For sure. Now, didn't you move from one state to another to be closer to doctors?
I did. I had originally moved to Arizona to be closer to my grandmother, to help take care of my grandmother, and getting away from Ohio was also part of my recovery. But the doctors had told me when I was in Arizona that being an hour and 20 minutes away from the hospital was too much. And my girlfriend lives in Texas, and I had heard about UT Southwestern.
Okay. Is that the University of Texas?
They have a really good like vascular team. So it just made sense, since I had to move closer anyways to a doctor, it just made sense to move to Texas. So that's
What kind of care team do you have set up?
Right now, not much of anything, because I don't have insurance, and I haven't seen the vascular team at UT Southwestern yet, because I don't live in the county, and usually they only offer like financial assistance if you live within the county. But they might make an exception. because I have a rare thing, but I don't know. So I'm working on that. But as far as like doctors go, like I mean, I've been to the ER like a dozen times in the past couple months, but past that, I don't really have like any kind of a team.
Do the doctors in the ER know about what you have?
Yeah. The one guy, he understands. He understands pretty good. But there's a couple of doctors there that sorry. It's like how it's been, most of my life. Like, something's wrong, and I go to the hospital, and like most of the doctors there, they just, you don't have anything wrong with you. You're fine. Go home. Like my head, I'm like, this doesn't make sense. Because I don't feel good, but doctors tell me I'm crazy, and
That has to be so frustrating.
yeah, it's a little frustrating. It's very frustrating.
I remember experiencing that before my diagnosis. And even sometimes after, too.
Yeah.
You get ER doctors that, they hear Ehlers-Danlos, and so they immediately put you under the type 3 hypermobility umbrella of Ehlers-Danlos. And
Right.
I had one doctor tell me, I don't understand why you're here. You're at no higher risk of a dissection than anybody else. I was like,
Oh my
pretty sure
gosh.
that's exactly what my diagnosis with VEDS means. That I'm at a higher
Right.
risk.
Oh my gosh, that's so horrible.
Yeah, so one of the things that has really helped me is having a doctor on my team, like Shireen Shalhoub at the University of Washington, because she'll call them for you. She'll be like, let me talk to them.
Wow.
So I think I've found that the major hospitals like the University of Washington, they typically have doctors who can really be on your team like that. So hopefully when you get to the University of Texas Southwestern, I think that's what that probably stands for.
Yeah, UT Southwestern University of Texas.
Yeah, so they hopefully they'll have somebody that can really be on your team as an advocate.
Yeah. I have hope. I have faith.
Yeah.
I also have a really bad what do you call that? I procrastinate a lot. So it's a big it's a big mixture between procrastination and me arguing with myself in my head like, well, I'm sure they got better things to do. You just do it tomorrow. You bother them tomorrow. That's kind of what goes on in my head.
Yeah.
That's a big reason as to why I don't really have a team.
So what kinds of complications have you had with VEDS?
Prior to my diagnosis, back in '07, I had orthoscopic knee reconstructive surgery. Orthoscopic reconstructive surgery. Yeah, there we go. On my right knee. And the surgery went fine. And then I went home. It was probably 6 hours after I had gotten home. And my wife had looked at me and she was like, you just turned blue. And I don't really remember like what happened. But we went to the hospital and they had told me that I had a blood clot that had passed. I had a PE, and they admitted me in the hospital. I think I was in the hospital for 10 days. I caught a pneumonia the next day after they admitted me. That was probably the worst 10 days. That was worse than the open heart recovery.
Wow.
That whole thing was so nuts. I thought I was gonna die. I mean, it was really bad. I had this blood clot. I mean, it was in my lung. I wasn't gonna die, but the sick, how sick I was unreal. I couldn't believe how sick I was. But they nursed me back to health. That's really, I think that's the only blood clot complication I've had.
Yeah. What had happened to your knee?
I was at work, and I worked in an aluminum fabrication plant,
Mm-hmm.
and so it's a lot of machinery and a lot of oil. And usually, when you spill oil, you're supposed to put this dry rice, so it's basically a cat litter.
Yeah.
You know? But someone spilled oil, or there was oil leaking, and nobody failed to see it. And I was beelining it for another department. I had a roll of paper on my shoulder. It was about 50 pounds, and I hit the oil slick and twisted my knee and snapped it. My leg immediately like tripled in size, and so that's how that happened.
Did you tear your ACL?
I tore my ACL. I tore my medial meniscus. Yep. So they put in some staples. The surgery took 3 hours, 4 hours.
Mm-hmm.
And this was all part of workers' comp. And workers' comp was very, like, if you have a blood clot, we're not gonna like recoup you, until the blood clot is gone. They wouldn't even pay for it until the blood clot was gone. So, that was 9 months that I couldn't go to the therapist.
Wow.
To work on my knee. During which time, I was collecting workers' comp, which is only like, I think I was getting like 700 or 800 like every 2 weeks,
Mm-hmm.
which isn't really much, and because I had stopped working, and my wife had thought that, I was just being lazy, and she left, she left. She's like, I don't want to be with some guy who's not working. And, it was like, I thought there was something wrong with me, and like people are telling me, you don't have anything wrong with you, you got this blood clot, and, there's like all these other complications, and my body's never really been right. Ever since that, that blood clot kind of triggered a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
But, yeah.
Wow. That's similar to how I tore my ACL all the way through.
Oof.
I slipped on some mop water at work.
Oh my gosh.
I guess I just twisted it just the right way, and it tore it, I think, like 99% of the way through.
Yeah.
And for a few weeks, they didn't think there was anything wrong with my knee. They didn't do a scan. They were just like, oh, yeah, you're fine. Come back in 4 weeks. I came back in 4 weeks, and the muscle had atrophied, and they did a scan, and oh wow, your ACL's torn all the way through. But I think those injuries, they just tend to be more severe for us.
Yeah.
Everything tears.
Yeah,
easily.
which is it's like I said, it's almost comforting because I've always thought that there was something wrong with me my whole life, and everyone's like, "Oh, you're fine," but there is something wrong with me. I've been telling people my whole life, Katie, we're crazy.
It's like, look, there's something wrong with us. See, it's hard having an invisible illness, especially one that's so rare because doctors don't notice it immediately.
So many times I go to the hospital and they have to Google. They Google, like, we're going to Google that. We'll be back. Like, you're supposed to know this stuff. You guys are the pros.
Yeah, I've actually talked to physician assistant students that it's completely left out of their textbooks.
Yeah.
It's wild.
It's, well, when the bare bones, like, ugliness about it is that it doesn't create enough problems for the pharmaceutical companies to make money off of it. When you hear something like a rare disease, rare only means that it doesn't make money. Like, and that's really, that's where a lot of my anger comes from today. When it comes to, like, the medical community not moving fast enough, or progress being shown or more people being interested in this, because it doesn't pull in that one thing that controls everything else, and that's money. But it is nice to know that I'm not crazy, that we're not crazy.
Yeah.
Every day I hope and I pray that like this miracle cure comes. At least if anything, so the generation coming in now has a chance, because there's so many other things in this world to do than like sitting around like wondering if today is going to be the day.
Oh yeah. What do you like to do?
I like to work out. I like being outside. I love spending time with my girlfriend. Yeah, basically anything to keep my mind busy.
Is there anything about your workout routine that has changed since your diagnosis?
I don't use heavy weights. I go on the elliptical a lot more now. I don't really jog as much. But other than that, it's just the same routine, just lighter weights and more concentration.
Yeah.
It seems that like with every workout routine, like I focus more on just making sure I don't fall, or stuff like that.
Yeah.
But it's it's good. It's very helpful. It's getting to the point where if I miss working out, like my anxiety starts to kick up and my body starts to hurt, and so it's kind of like a double-edged sword, because of working out, you get sore, and it's kind of painful for us on our joints. But if we don't, it's even worse.
Yeah, I've experienced that too.
When I stopped moving, even back in 2007 when I had my surgery and I stopped moving, I got real, like, I was just always in pain and I couldn't understand why.
Yeah.
Of course, now we know why.
Double-edged sword.
Yeah, double-edged sword.
Yeah. Well, thank you for talking with me today.
Thank you for having me, Katie.
Is there anything else you want to share with the listeners?
Keep your heads held high. There are hope. There is hope. There are hope.
There are hope. There is hope.
There are hope.
There are many hopes.
There are many hopes. You're right.
There we go. All right. Well, thank you everybody for listening. This was Staying Connected. This was Katie and Ed. And this was Ed's story with vascular Ehlers-Danlos syndrome. So if you like the podcast, go ahead and hit subscribe on your podcast player. We have new episodes coming out on the last Sunday of every month for now, and hopefully in the future there might be more than that. But right now, last Sunday of every month. So hit subscribe. If you have vascular Ehlers-Danlos syndrome and you want to be on the podcast, or you want to talk to somebody else with VEDS, go ahead and hit me up on my contact me page on my blog, and we can get in touch. So thanks again for listening, and I'll talk to you soon.